A single extra byte, a renamed function, a slightly rearranged file structure. Sometimes that is all it takes for malicious software to slip past antivirus protection that millions of people trust every single day. And honestly, that should make everyone pause for a second. Because most people assume that once an antivirus detects malware, the problem is solved forever. But what if the malware only needed a tiny cosmetic change to disappear from detection completely? Welcome to BlueHat Cybersec Academy. And in this episode of the Malware Encyclopedia, we are diving into one of the most important and most misunderstood concepts in modern cybersecurity: Antivirus Signature Evasion. We are going to break down how traditional antivirus detection actually works, why attackers learn to bypass it so effectively, the major evasion techniques used in the real world, and why modern cybersecurity increasingly depends on behavioral analysis rather than static signatures alone. Because once you understand how malware avoids detection, you start looking at digital security very differently. To understand evasion, you first need to understand what malware signatures actually are. A malware signature is essentially a unique identifier linked to malicious software. Antivirus engines scan files and compare them against databases containing known malicious patterns. Those signatures can include things like specific byte sequences, file hashes, suspicious strings, opcode patterns, embedded resources, and even known malicious behaviors. Think of it like facial recognition, but for files. If a file resembles a known malicious sample closely enough, the antivirus flags it. And to be fair, this approach works extremely well against previously identified malware. But here's where things start to shift. The moment attackers change even a small part of the file, the signature can break. If malware can change its appearance without changing its purpose, how reliable are static detection systems on their own? The weakness of signature-based detection. And this is where the real limitation begins to show. Signature detection is reactive by nature. Before an antivirus product can reliably detect a threat, vendors usually go through a cycle. First, they need a malware sample. Then they analyze it. Then they build a signature. And finally, they push updates to users. Only after that does detection become effective. Now pause for a moment, because attackers do not wait for that cycle to finish. They exploit that delay every single time. And it gets worse. Modern files are extremely flexible. Malware authors can change structure, rename variables, shift encoding, compress payloads, encrypt sections, reorder instructions, or modify metadata, all without changing what the malware actually does. So what is happening here? The behavior stays the same, but the identity keeps changing, and that creates a fundamental problem for signature-based systems. It is like trying to recognize someone only by their outfit while they keep changing it every hour. At some point, identification stops being reliable. Now let us slow this down and define the core idea clearly. Antivirus signature evasion simply means modifying malware in a way that avoids detection without breaking its functionality. That is the entire goal. Nothing more complex than that. Preserve behavior. Remove recognizable patterns. And here's the part that surprises most people. This does not necessarily make malware more powerful. It just makes it harder to see. And in cybersecurity, harder to see is often enough, because malware that gets detected fails. But malware that goes unnoticed? That is the real risk. Now let us step into real-world techniques. One of the oldest methods is packing. Think of it like putting malware inside a sealed container. The original file gets compressed or encrypted, and a small loader is added. When executed, it unpacks everything into memory. To antivirus software, that container looks completely different from the original malware. And here is where defenders hit a problem. Packing is not always malicious. Legitimate software uses it too, for protection, compression, and anti-tampering. So now the system has to guess. Is this a normal packed application or hidden malware? And attackers rely on that uncertainty, because ambiguity is a weapon in cybersecurity. Now things start getting more subtle. Obfuscation does not change what malware does. It changes how it looks. Variables get renamed, instructions get rearranged, fake operations get added, strings get encrypted, API calls get hidden, but the outcome stays identical. Computers do not care how code looks. They only care what it executes. So when appearance changes but logic stays intact, signature-based detection starts losing visibility. And this is usually the moment where people realize something important. Security systems are not broken. They are just looking at the wrong layer. Now let us raise the difficulty level. Polymorphic malware is where things start becoming more dynamic. Here is the idea. Every time it runs or spreads, it changes itself. Not just small edits, actual structural changes. The malware encrypts its main body and generates a new decryption layer each time. So what happens? Every copy looks different. And this is where signature-based detection starts struggling hard. But here is the real insight. It is not just changing appearance. It is constantly evolving appearance. So defenders are no longer dealing with one malware sample. They are dealing with thousands of variations of the same malware. And that changes the entire game. Now we go even deeper. And this is where things get uncomfortable for defenders. Metamorphic malware does not just encrypt itself. It rewrites itself. Entire structure changes. Instructions get replaced with equivalents. Code gets rearranged. Junk logic gets inserted. And flow paths change. But the behavior? Still identical. Pause here for a second. Because this is the point where detection stops being about recognizing patterns and starts becoming about understanding intent. And that is a huge shift. Because when malware can fully rewrite itself, there is no stable fingerprint left to track. And this is exactly why static detection starts collapsing under pressure. Now let us move into something even more modern, fileless malware. And this one is important because it changes the entire assumption antivirus relies on. Instead of dropping files onto disk, it runs directly in memory. It abuses trusted tools like PowerShell, WMI, macros, scripts, and built-in system utilities. Now think about that. Nothing malicious is technically installed in the traditional sense. So what do you scan? That is the problem. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Attackers are no longer breaking systems. They are using the system itself. And that is why fileless attacks are so effective. Because they look normal. At this point, everything connects. Signature detection starts to feel limited, so security evolves. Instead of asking, does this file match known malware? Modern systems ask, does this behavior make sense? And that changes everything. Now, detection focuses on actions like, why is a PDF launching PowerShell? Why is a document modifying registry persistence? Why is one process injecting into another? Now we are not looking at appearance anymore. We are looking at intent. And that shift exists for one reason. Because attackers learned how to change appearance faster than defenders can track it. And now we step back. Because this is not a single technique problem. This is a cycle. Defenders improve detection. Attackers improve evasion. Defenders improve analysis. Attackers improve stealth. And it never stops. That is why no single security layer is enough. Antivirus helps. EDR helps. Behavioral analysis helps. But real security comes from stacking defenses, not relying on one. Because attackers only need one weak point. Defense needs consistency everywhere. Now let us clear something up. Undetectable malware is mostly a myth. Because detection is not static. It changes over time. A sample that bypasses antivirus today might get detected tomorrow. Modern defense focuses more on behavior than files. Because files change. But behavior often leaves patterns. Why understanding evasion matters. Now here is something important. Studying this is not about misuse. It is about awareness. Because you cannot defend against what you do not understand. Security professionals study these techniques because attackers already use them. And understanding them helps build better detection systems, stronger architectures, and fewer blind spots. That is the real purpose. Not fear, not hype, just awareness. And when you zoom out, everything becomes clear. Antivirus signature evasion is not just a technical trick. It is a reminder that detection is always behind adaptation. For years, security relied on known patterns. Attackers responded by removing patterns. And that changed cybersecurity forever. Because now, it is not about identifying what something looks like. It is about understanding what it does. And in cybersecurity, assumptions are always the first thing to break. Now here is a challenge for you. If attackers can bypass signature-based detection by changing appearance, what do you think is the future of cybersecurity detection? Static signatures, behavior-based detection, AI-driven systems, or something completely different? And one more question. Which of these do you think is hardest to detect in real environments? Polymorphic malware, metamorphic malware, or fileless attacks? Drop your answers in the comments. And if you want to go deeper into how malware really thinks and evolves, continue exploring the Malware Encyclopedia here on BlueHat Cybersec Academy, because every new concept you understand makes the attacker's job a little harder. If this breakdown helped you think more clearly about cybersecurity, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing so you do not miss the next deep dive into malware, evasion, and digital defense. And as always, stay curious, stay critical, and stay secure.